So yeah, so we are live with David B Horne, and David, I am just so thrilled that you could do this for us, because I do know how busy you are normally, and then throwing all this into the mix is crazy. Now, to introduce you, I'm going to put us both on gallery first. To introduce you, I normally don't do this, but because you've done so much, I'm actually going to read out what you've done. So anyone who doesn't know David, David's the founder of Add Then Multiply, a consultancy working exclusively with business founders who want to grow fast. David's a chartered accountant, and his career includes being CFO of 2 companies listed in London's alternative investment market, where he raised more than 100 million in funding and bought or sold more than 20 companies. David's the best-selling author of Add Then Multiply, How Small Business Can Think Like Big Businesses and Achieve Exponential Growth. His book won the Best Self-Development category at the Business Book Awards in 2020. It sets out David's proven phase methodology, fund, acquire, consolidate and exit, which supports rapid growth. And this is a part I'm really interested in as well. He's also the founder of Fund and Focus, an educational business that's raising awareness and supporting women and racial minorities who face a very uneven playing field when trying to raise capital for their businesses, which I think is fantastic. And as well, we've just been talking, this is where you're going to be your second book as well, isn't it, David?
Yes, it will be. Yeah, coming out later this year.
Fantastic. So I'll keep everybody posted on that, on when the book's coming out. So I don't think we could have found anybody more experienced to speak about this, because I know as well you deal a lot with, very closely with the banks and government and things as well. So obviously the funding that is out at the moment for, well, you know, for everyone, but us as salon owners, it's been a little bit of a minefield, to be honest. So
Yes.
Can you just give us an overview of what's there? And I've got questions that people have asked. But
Absolutely. So what I'll do, I'll talk quick. So there's 6 specific schemes, and then I just want to give a quick update on some recent temporary changes to insolvency law that, if you're a business owner, are very important. And then we can go into all the details. So I'll just run through the schemes, and then we can talk about it, depending on how you want to do it. I can talk about how you apply now.
Fantastic.
Let's do that. Okay, so just as an overview, the 6 schemes I'm going to talk about. The first one is deferral of VAT for the current quarter. Then there are grants that are available. There's CBILS, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. Let me close my email account so it stops pinging. There, that'll keep it quiet. Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. Then there is the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, and a related one that's focused on self-employed people called the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. Finally, there's an ongoing HMRC scheme called Time to Pay. And then, as I said, I'll talk briefly about the insolvency rules, and we can take things from there. So wow. First up,
I didn't even realize there was that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm just going to let you talk.
So anyone who's interested in finding out more of this, if they go onto my website, addthenmultiply.com, and just click on the blogs, I've written a whole series of blogs over the last 2 weeks, doing my best to explain all of the government announcements, but put them into plain English so that people can understand them. So if you just go to the blog site on the blog page on my website, addthenmultiply.com. So starting off with the VAT deferral scheme, anyone who is VAT registered for any payment of VAT between the 23rd of March, when this was announced, and the end of June, that payment of VAT is deferred until March of 2021. Now, you still have to file your VAT return. So if you're trading on a normal quarterly schedule, and so you'll do a VAT return for January to March, you still have to file your VAT return by the 7th of May. But the money that you would normally have paid on the 7th of May doesn't have to be paid until the end of March. So that's a really important, and in the very short term, a big saver on cash flow, because your VAT bill doesn't need to be paid.
Can I just ask you there, David, do we have to cancel any direct debits, or will the government not try to take it?
I'm recommending to people that you cancel it just in case.
Okay.
They're saying that they won't, but governments say all sorts of things, and governments are doing all sorts of things right now. So this could slip through the cracks. So I would recommend cancel your direct debit for the current payment and then reinstate it thereafter so that you don't miss out. But you must remember to file the VAT return.
Yes.
That's
right.
the most important.
Okay.
The other thing, if you're in the situation where you get a VAT rebate, my understanding is that rebates will be paid. So if for some reason you're due a VAT rebate in the current quarter, even though you don't need to make the payment, if you're due a rebate, you should get the rebate.
Brilliant. Right.
The next thing, and I think this will apply to most salons, is the grant scheme that was announced. And that's based on any small business that has rateable premises. So if you get a rates assessment from your local authority on your salon, and there's two groupings here. There's one which is a general small business policy, and that's if your rateable value is less than £15,000 and you're entitled to either small business rate relief, or if you live in a rural community, there's something called rural rate relief. If you're entitled to either of those, then you get a £10,000 grant. And I'll come back to that in a minute. The special thing that got announced, and I think this will apply to salons, is if you are in the retail, hospitality, or leisure sector, because those businesses were effectively shut down when the lockdown was announced, those businesses with a rateable value of up to £50,000 can get a grant of £25,000. And the whole grant scheme is administered through your local authority. There's nothing that you as a business owner need to do. If you're paying rates, they'll have you on their database, and they will be contacting you to let you know whether you qualify or not. I am aware of several councils that have already started making the repayments to people, or the grant payments to people, but not all of them are yet. And of course, as we all know, during the austerity years, local government got rather decimated. So they're struggling to catch up. But I think it's brilliant that some have already made payments and are making that commitment. So you should be receiving a letter from your local council, and you should be receiving a cash grant this month. If you want to check your own eligibility, just check your rate statement. Any small business below 15,000 rateable value, if you get the rates relief, you will get a £10,000 grant. For bigger businesses in retail, hospitality, and leisure, up to £50,000 rateable value, you will get the £25,000 grant.
We've had, I think we're about 50-50 on who's being paid out and who hasn't at the moment.
50-50, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And I know in my town, I have like two businesses, and one I've been paid, one I haven't. So it's obviously, it's not even that they're getting through them all together. I think it's just, so we've had a few people panic and thinking they're not going to get anything. But I think you always get a confirmation, though, I think, saying that you
get a confirmation from your local authority. And my advice to people generally at the moment is that old World War II slogan, keep calm and carry on, because we're all in this together.
Yeah. So say, like, I think is there a time limit, you think, when people they'll have got them all out, or is that how long's a piece of string?
According to the announcements that came out of government, the target was that all of the grants will be paid this month. Right.
That's great. At least, yeah. Fantastic.
So anyone who hasn't heard from their council, I mean, you know, we've got the Easter weekend coming up, but anyone who hasn't heard from their council in the next kind of by about the 25th of the month, then maybe try and reach out. But until then, just let them get caught up.
Is there any point in ringing them in to sort of ching them along, or does that not work?
I think you'll end up spending a long time on the phone and you might not get an answer.
Okay. worth a try.
One of
Okay.
my neighbors has just started mowing their lawn. I'm just going to close the window.
I'm just going to check here and see whether I can see any questions coming through. I've got Connor on handling it as well at the other end in case, because sometimes you can see all the questions, sometimes you can't. So yeah, so anything I can find. Right, we've got a few. Wait on. Does that mean you can get the 10,000 or the 25,000?
No, it's 10,000 or 25,000, not both. That would be nice, but
That
no.
would be nice, yes. Yeah, Susan's saying they've contacted her today about her grant. I think it's just, as I say, you know, I'm in one town with two businesses and one's been paid and one hasn't. So I think it's just, they're just working through it. No,
They are. And when you stop and think how many businesses are there in your local town or your local borough or wherever you are, and they're just going to work sequentially through the system.
Yeah, brilliant. Right. Okay, that's all the questions we've got so far, David. So
Terrific. Okay, so moving on to what's potentially the biggest scheme, and certainly in terms of money that is potentially available, is the CBILS, or as I like to call it, the CBILS scheme. It kind of makes me think of Basil Fawlty's wife. So the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. And the idea behind this is if your business has been affected, then the government is backing loans. But as with everything where there's loans involved, the devil's in the detail. And the banks have also taken a lot of bad press in the very early days about this. Rightly so, I think, because there were some things that weren't completely clear. But the Chancellor made a further announcement at the end of last week, and I picked up, again, it's on my blog, picked up the detail on this. And most importantly, what the Chancellor announced was that for loans made under the CBILS scheme, up to £250,000 worth of loan, there is no personal guarantee required. And all of the banks have been told that they must lend where there's a qualified lending opportunity. They must lend up to 250. They cannot take a PG. Above 250, they have the right to take a PG. So depending on the sizes of the Salon businesses, you know, if you sit down and work out what your cash requirements are, I think for a lot of small businesses, up to 250 grand should cover them for 6 months plus, you know, particularly when you consider some of the other schemes that are available, and we'll come on to those as well.
So with that, David, how do you work out? Is there a way that, you know, if you put in too much, you're going to get turned down? How would you work out how much, you know, whether you're thinking, should I go for 10, 20? You know what I mean? How do you do that?
I mean, well, so let me just first, there's 4 key criteria that you must meet in order to qualify. So your business must be primarily UK based, which I think for your Salon clients that will apply. The business turnover must be less than 45 million. So again, I think for most of your clients that will apply. They need to demonstrate that it was a viable business. So if it was a business that was going to go under anyway, it's not going to succeed under this scheme. But if it was a business that can demonstrate, look, we've been trading for X number of years, we've consistently shown this level of profitability, even in our current period up till the March time, we had this level of business activity and profitability. And then all of a sudden, 23rd of March comes along and we are forced to shut down. And I imagine in most salon owners' cases, that meant their revenue overnight went to zero.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So that's a very clear case of something that should be covered under this scheme and the way it's been designed. Now, I've partnered up with a couple of colleagues and we've developed a free scorecard. So people can go out and just, it's a 16-question scorecard that they can fill out that will tell them if they meet the government criteria and also if they have the assets that are needed. And when I say assets, the detail needed to support a loan application.
So does somebody get a report at the end of that?
They'll get a report at the end of that,
Wow.
yeah. So if they want to go onto the website, it's CBILS-scorecard.co.uk. And that's a free scorecard that anyone can go in and fill in 16 questions, and you'll get a report following on from that. And then depending on how that comes out, one of the people on our team will give you a call and can discuss it. We
Right.
then have a product that we're offering to people, but that's a paid for product. So again, it would depend on the size of the business and things. But I would suggest that as a first step, everyone should at least fill in the scorecard and find out what they're faced with, whether they will qualify. And, you know, it really depends. I mean, some salon owners will be really on top of their business planning, and they'll have their spreadsheets and their models, and they'll be all over their numbers, and others won't.
Yeah.
For the ones who are all over their numbers and have their plans and can demonstrate that, they're in a good position to go to the bank. For the ones who don't have that and aren't used to doing that and don't really know what to do, this is where we've created a product called Take That to the Bank, or Take This to the Bank, which basically will help them build it. But obviously that requires a lot more work, and there's a fee to pay for that. So, but I would say anyone who is curious, do the scorecard. CBILS-scorecard.co.uk. That's completely free, and then take it from there.
Okay. So what percentage of people would you know are getting accepted? I know, hasn't it changed? Wasn't it last week? I think it's quite like soon, isn't it? Last week there was people getting turned down, and is it easier this week?
That is my understanding, and certainly from the announcement that the Chancellor made, it was all about, we've got to make it easier. And I understand that he actually had a Zoom call with the chief executives of all of the banks on one call. There's 40 banks that are accredited under the CBILS scheme. And I understand that the Chancellor had a call with all of them and rather read them the riot act that said, get on with it, get it sorted. Now, there have been a number of issues, and at the risk of sounding like I'm coming up on the side of the banks defending them, which I'm not, but it's just to explain to people. Probably the biggest challenge that the banks have faced, because like salons and things, their branch networks are closed or have had radically reduced opening hours. Now, the banks are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, and as you would expect, banks are very, very tightly regulated because they're looking after our money. And what's happened with this lockdown, up until now, everything that's been designed within the bank systems has been driving people either into the branch network or through an online network or through a call center network into a bank-specific premises that was secure, that had all the IT infrastructure in place. Now those things are being shut down because of the lockdown, and they're having more and more employees going and working from home. Now, many of those employees don't have a bank computer or a bank laptop. They would have had a bank desktop at their office, and they're now working from home, and they might be on their personal laptop or their personal computer system, and they're dialing into this bank secured networks through a TalkTalk or a Sky or a Virgin broadband line that doesn't have the level of security that the FCA requires. So I think the biggest challenge that the banks have faced is, how do we make sure that we can continue to bring a secure environment so that we're able to fulfill these things? And I've spoken with senior people at HSBC, Lloyds and Barclays, who have all told me that they've been just grappling with these security things. But they've also all told me that they are under very clear instruction to make these loans and get them happening. And I know from a call, I was on a call with the head of commercial banking for HSBC last week. And he said that HSBC have earmarked £8 billion to support businesses under this scheme. So the banks are putting the money behind it, but what we've got to do is just give them time to get their systems and processes set up and allow the process to go through, because you're still making a loan application. You still need to be able to justify that this is a viable business loan. So as I said, if you're running a salon and you were about to go bust, you can't just go along and say, well, I'll take a coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, because you wouldn't have got a loan. This whole scheme has been designed to say, if you had a business that was otherwise fine and has been impacted by the coronavirus, we're helping you to get through this transition period.
Now, I've got a few questions around this. So someone had asked, what if your business hasn't been doing very well or has a bad credit rating that you're not going to...
That will make life more difficult. Yeah,
Right.
there's no question that will make life more difficult.
So how many years, is it that you've got to have X amount of years?
So what the banks are what the banks are typically asking for is 2 years of company accounts, the full
Right.
published company. So not the short ones that go on Companies House, but the fuller ones that have the details at the back end. They're
Yeah.
asking for 2 years of that, plus your current management account. So let's say you're a December year end. So they would want to, so you probably don't have your December 19 accounts finalized. So they'd want to see December 17, December 18, and then your management accounts from January of 19 through until, I guess, February. It's
Yeah.
only the 9th of April, so we can't expect people to have their March accounts ready yet. But they'd want to see your management accounts for that. And then they want to see projections going forward. One set that says, here's how the business would have carried on. And the other set says, however, COVID-19 happened and the lockdown came, and all of a sudden my revenue's gone to zero, and I've furloughed my staff, and I've done these things, and here so it's literally it's creating those two models.
Right.
And that product that I was mentioning that my partners and I are offering puts all of that together.
Okay, sounds good. Right, does your personal credit rating apply as well? Does it account?
Technically, it shouldn't. It should be being measured on the credit rating of the business. Having said that, the banks are going to pick up on all the credit score information that they've got. So there's certainly if someone's going in with a bad personal credit rating, that could be an issue. But if the business can justify it, then it should be okay.
I've got to say a few on this.
That's okay.
If you've been turned down, because I know a few people have, does that affect your credit rating?
No.
Right. So if you've been
and actually, can I just jump in there? If you've been turned down prior to last Friday, when the Chancellor made the new announcements, you can actually go back to your bank and ask them to revisit it.
Right.
So if you made an application up till the 3rd of April and you got turned down, because the Chancellor made this updated announcement late on the 2nd of April, and the new rules kicked in from Monday of this week, if you were rejected through last week, you have the ability to go back to your bank and say, please revisit this. You
wouldn't need to put a whole new application in or anything. You might need to tweak it.
I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Right. This loan, can you pay it back in full before the interest kicks in?
Yes, and that's one of the features. So it's the first 12 months, the government covers any fees and all interest. So if you do borrow it and then you find you don't need it, you can pay it back and you won't have any interest to pay. And
is it true it's going to be available for 6 months?
That is correct.
Right. So
correct. And so again, keep calm and carry on, because I know a lot of people are rushing out, and I've heard stories of people being online or on the phone waiting for 4 or 5 hours to speak to someone.
I've heard of that.
If your business is okay and can get through the next few weeks, because once the systems and processes are up and running, the banks will be much more able to deal with this this volume of inquiries that are coming. But obviously, if you need it in the short term, go for it. But be prepared to wait. But if you can afford to wait, I wouldn't say wait 3 months, but if you can afford to wait into May, you'll save yourself a lot of hassle.
And if you get accepted, how long have you got before you have to take it, or how long does it stay valid for?
That will depend on what the terms of the individual offer are from the bank. I would imagine it would be valid for at least 14, if not 30 days.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're going to go through the process of applying, I mean, who knows when this thing's going to end, but I wouldn't be surprised to see us in lockdown until June.
Yeah.
That's just my view. You know, I know the government keeps saying as soon as we can and blah, 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 but you know, Wuhan only just came out of lockdown and they were 11 weeks.
Now, Sandra's saying that's what happened to me, got rejected 2 weeks ago, but now accepted without offering any more info on the application. So it just goes.
There you go. Well done, Sandra.
Yeah.
In fact, Sandra, and if I can reach out to you or Sandra, I'm collecting stories of people who have successfully applied. So if Sandra could reach out to me, I would love to interview her, because I want to pull together more stories and share this so that people understand how did we make it.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I'm sure Sandra would be up for that. I'm sure. And she's saying as well that hers was valid for 28 days.
Yeah.
Catherine's asking, do you know what a typical interest rate is going to be after the 12 months?
Right now, from the details that I'm seeing from the main high street banks, they're, depending on the size and the length of the loans, they're looking at between 3 and 4.5% above base rates, but base rates are now 0.1. So interest rates are looking at being sub 5%. So it's quite attractive.
And if you go past the 12 months and take the loan out, is there a facility to, do you know, to pay it back sooner, or would you have to go the full term of the loan, do you think?
I think the details of that would depend on which bank you were with, and yeah, each bank has their own set of rules on that.
Yeah, because Kate's saying, how long are they taking to pay the loans typically?
The maximum you can have a loan under CBILS is 6 years, and the minimum is 3 months.
Right. Actually, Rachel's practically answering my next one, which was, should I go for a loan or overdraft? Rachel's saying, I went for an overdraft instead of a loan. It went through quite quickly, 2 weeks from initial call. So.
Okay, so I mean, there's pros and cons to both. Given that there's no interest cost in the first 12 months, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the nice thing about an overdraft is if you only need it for a week, a month, you're only paying interest for a week, a month. Whereas with a fixed loan that you're repaying in fixed amounts over a period of time, as long as there's something outstanding, you're paying interest. With this product, particularly if you're looking at a short-term repayment, I think an overdraft or a loan doesn't make much difference. If you're going for a bigger amount of money and you need more time, then you'd need to go for a loan, because you'd need to have that certainty that, you know, let's say you went for 200 grand, you know, that you wanted to pay that back over 4 years, say.
Right. Actually, Kate's saying, sorry, she meant the money in the bank. So I think Kate's meaning from applying to it actually going into your bank. They're quite quick at.
Yes, 2 weeks is 2 weeks is fast. I have a client in Switzerland. The Swiss government put a similar scheme in, but the Swiss are very efficient. My client took out, so he's got several businesses, and across the businesses, secured a facility worth just more than £500,000. And from putting the application in to the bank coming back to us, requesting some more data, us supplying that data to the money being in the bank was 48 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, but 2 weeks is good. 2 weeks is good.
Yeah. So someone asked as well, can you apply to other banks if you get refused, or your bank isn't very helpful?
Under the terms of the scheme, you can. However, all of the main banks are saying, because of the volume of demand, they are giving priority to their existing customers. Because if, again, coming back to the whole regulatory side of things, if you go and change banks, they've got to take you through, you've got to go through the whole validation process with them. You've got to get through that. There's a process called KYC, know your client. You got to take in your passport, utility bill, historical accounts, sit down with someone in the branch, talk it through, and then, you know, you're then an account customer, but they have no history on you. So under the pure rules of the scheme, yes, you can apply to others, but based on what I'm seeing, the others will put you at the back of the queue.
Now, Rachel's saying NatWest won't do interest-free, but they're all interest-free, aren't they?
They are interest-bearing, but the government pays the interest for the first 12 months.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. Right. Okay. So
So it is an interest-bearing loan, but if you get one of the CBILS products for the first 12 months, the government picks up the interest.
right. Claire's asking, what's the minimum amount you can borrow, please?
It depends on banks, but if you look at the high street banks, it's ranging between 10 and 25,000.
Right. Right. I think that is all we've got on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's just a couple of points, and again, you can guide me on this. There's this threshold of £250,000 below which there's no personal guarantee, above which there is. I don't know if anyone in your wider community would be looking for that much money.
I don't think so. Maybe
Okay.
suppliers, but not. It's mainly salons that we're dealing with. So no.
Okay, so I won't go into that, but if anybody has questions about that, have them raise it, and we can always pick it up offline.
And as well, we will put all of the links that you've been talking about. Someone's asking about the links. We'll put all the links into the feed as well, so that everyone's got everything for the scorecard and everything. So
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, the next, I'm going to talk about two schemes together next. One is the coronavirus job retention scheme. And people, there's been a lot of people talking about, oh, what does this mean to be furloughed and stuff? And then there's a similar scheme called the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme. And both of these are designed to provide income protection to people who have basically lost their job, even though they haven't. And the whole idea behind it is, instead of making people redundant, we're going to offer a support scheme that allows companies to put people on furlough. They're calling it furlough. It's not a term recognized in UK employment law until now. But the idea is, so my salon has shut down. I don't need my receptionists. I don't need my the various people doing the things in the salon. Some of them might be employees on PAYE. Some of them might be self-employed people who I pay, and then they have to do their own tax. This scheme, or these schemes, are designed to protect those people. And if it's the job retention scheme, so it's employees who are on your PAYE payroll, the government will pay 80% of their salary up to a capped amount of £2,500 a month. So if you had an employee who was on £2,000 a month, the government will cover £1,600. If they were on $2,500, the government will cover $2,000. If they were on $3,000, the government will cover $2,400. And then once they hit 3,125 or higher, the cap hits, and they get a maximum of £2,500. But the idea behind this is to stop literally tens of millions of people being made redundant at the same time, and enable the companies to continue, because we know that we're in this, and we're not quite sure how long it's going to end, but we know it's also going to end and some form of normalcy is going to return. And we don't want to have a situation where 25 million people have been made redundant and then they're all out scrambling for jobs, and all of the employers are all out scrambling for good employees. So let's create this scheme so that companies who have employees can protect them, keep them on their books, keep them employed, but they go on to what they call furlough, so they don't have to work, but they still get some money.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a lot of they're still on a bit of a holiday mode kind of thing with it at the moment.
Yep, definitely. And with the nice weather, it's not a bad thing, as long as you've got access to an open space.
Now, because directors can furlough, there's been a lot of things around that, because they're saying that if you're on PAYE as well as dividends, that you can furlough yourself as a director.
You can furlough yourself as a director, but the 80% that the government pays is only your PAYE salary, not your dividends.
Yeah. Now, if you do that, what is because it says that you can do director duties.
Correct.
So is that still clients you can?
So the way, and I actually, my most recent blog post, which came out at the weekend, was specifically on this and clarifying what it means for directors. So you can furlough directors. There is a process that you must follow. You must have a board meeting Even if you're the only director, you must have a board meeting. You must have a minute that says that the board considered the situation and decided to put Director XYZ on furlough. That minute must be kept in the company's books.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And if that happens, then when that director, and if it's the sole director, goes on furlough, they're not allowed to do what are referred to as revenue generating things, and they're not allowed to carry on doing what they normally did. What they are allowed to do is fulfill their statutory obligations. And one of those statutory obligations is to protect the long-term interests of the company. And so what they might do is figure out, well, what are some options that we could do differently? What might we be able to do to entice our clients to stay on? What might we be able to do to get products to our clients so that they can do things at home because they can't come into the salon? What might we be able to do to create something that's new and different? And because it's doing things that are new and different, it doesn't fall foul of the rules. And the other thing that's really interesting, I was on a webinar with one of the top employment law firms at the weekend, and they were saying, because the rules are that you have to furlough for a minimum of 3 weeks. And so if you assume that a month is 4 weeks, I know it's 28, 30 or 31 days, but call it 4 weeks. So I'm going to furlough myself for 3 weeks, and then I'm going to come back and work for a week. And then I'm going to furlough myself for 3 weeks, and then I'm going to come back and work for a week. And that could potentially be a way round that thing, so that if, let's say you were on if you're paying yourself on a salary of £1,000 a month, and then you do the dividends on top. So for 3/4 of that month, you'd have earned £750. You can furlough yourself for that and get 80% of that, which is £600. Which is better than nothing. And then if the business can afford to pay you when you're not on furlough, you can draw that, but that's a cost of the business. But at least that's a method whereby you can get some money. And by coming back and being not on furlough for a week, that's when you get all of those revenue generating things done. So you can do all of your thinking and planning and organizing and structuring and long-term stuff while you're on furlough. And then you come back off furlough and you do it. And then you go back on furlough again, and then you come off it again.
Right. Oh, that's quite a good idea.
It's a tricky little loophole, but that's...
Yeah, because this is the thing, is there actually going to be, I just can't see how they're ever going to be able to police all of this, because there will be people floundering the rules, won't there?
There will be.
And some quite blatantly, but for us, I think the thing is that, we've got clients who are wanting products and things.
Exactly.
And, as a director, then sending them out, is that classed as money generating income kind of thing?
Do it in the week that you're not on furlough.
Okay, I'll put them through then.
Yeah. Brilliant. Now, I guess I'm guessing that for a lot of the staff who are working in the salons, they might not be on PAYE, but they might be self-employed, whether it's beauticians or hairdressers or whatever other things, I don't know.
I would say most are employed, but especially more in the hair sector, there's a lot of chair rental and things. So there's a lot of self-employed as well involved.
Yeah.
So
for those people, it's so for people who are employed, they remain employed. Their employer pays them, and their employer can pay them on the reduced 80% level. And then their employer claims back from HMRC a credit. That credit scheme is still being developed. HMRC are saying they will have a portal ready by the end of April. Whether they do or don't, I don't know, because that's creating a brand new portal. It's a complex bit of programming.
Like a huge gateway, isn't it?
let's hope that they do. But yeah, so as an employer, you would still be paying your employees wages, and then you'd get a grant back from the government. And just to clarify, the total grant that you get back under the CJRS is the 80% of salary up to the cap, plus the employer's NI that you would have paid on the 80% salary, plus if your employees are in an auto enrollment scheme, whatever your contribution as the employer would have been. So the employee gets the 80%, but they still pay NI, they still pay tax.
Right. So we still take sort of the pension payment and things like that.
Yes. So
Yeah.
everything operates as normal, but if you're furloughing people, you can adjust them down to the 80% level and then pay them on that basis.
Brilliant. Right.
And so just quickly, for self-employed, there's a different scheme that's coming. It's a bit tricky because they're saying that this scheme won't be active until June. So if you're self-employed, you're going to have to wait a little longer. It's the same broad principle that they will pay up to a cap of 2,500. They'll pay you 80% of what you had made. You'll need to present them with a couple of years of your self-assessment returns. Well, in fact, they should have them on the system. But you'd need to be able to demonstrate that. So if you made 30 grand last year and 32 grand in the current year, then they would average that out and say, well, it's 31 grand. So you get 80% of that, which is 24,800. So you'd get 2,000 and a bit.
So if that's coming in June, will that backdate?
It'll backdate, but if you're a self-employed, so if it's a chair rental for a hairdresser, those hairdressers are going to have to figure out how they're going to get through from now until June, because they're not going to get any money from the government on that, unless but they may choose to apply for a loan.
Right. Or the other options are just things like universal credit, aren't they? Like, which is
universal credit's the other option, yeah, and they have waived the 2-week qualifying period on that,
right,
as a temporary thing.
But will that affect someone's credit rating as well, going on to universal credit?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right, Suzanne's just asking, I've got so many questions too. Right, I'll start with Suzanne. Is that just for directors of limited companies or sole traders as well? Sole
traders would be under the self-employed income support scheme.
Right.
So if you're in an unincorporated business where you file your business results as part of your self-assessment tax return, then that under tax law, that's what's called self-employed, and that's the scheme that kicks in from June.
All right. Claire's saying, how would the government monitor me working?
I don't know.
Risk.
All I know is that all of the things that have come out from the government say that HMRC has the right to retrospectively go back and audit.
Yeah.
The reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
All I'll say is be sensible.
Yeah.
We're all in this mess. So, if a few people get greedy and do foolish things and it causes the whole thing to fall over, then, that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a great scheme because, we're lucky that not every country's we've got this support, and
exactly.
And I just think, they're putting things in place that would normally take months and months of negotiation and things. And, they've just done such a great job to get something there, and I know people are like saying, oh, it's not until like the end of April or such and such, but like in the scheme of things, it's like a really short time, isn't it? It's right. Jill saying she thought you had to furlough for a minimum of 3 months. No, it's
3 weeks. 3 weeks. And this is an interesting one. Let's say you've got a salon with 6 employees, and let's say for whatever reason you can continue a little bit of trade. So you want to keep 2 of your people on. So what you can do if this lockdown lasts for 9 weeks is for weeks 1, 2, and 3, employees 1 and 2 stay working, 3, 4, 5, and 6 go on furlough. And then after 3 weeks, employees 1 and 2 plus 3 and 4 go on furlough, 5 and 6 come into the business. And then after 3 weeks, 3 and 4 come into the business, and 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 are on furlough, so that everybody has an equal share.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, it's quite a few like creative ways to do it, isn't there, really?
Yes, there are.
It's quite flexible, really, to make a business work kind of thing around it. It's really good.
Yeah.
Right, David, we've got so many questions.
That's fine.
I'm self-employed. This is Gemma. I'm self-employed at a hairdresser's. I'm not entitled to any help by the government at all, but I'm still being asked to pay rent during this time. Is that right?
So if you're self-employed, then you will be eligible for the SEISS scheme, but that's the one that doesn't kick in until June. being asked to pay rent, presumably that's rent on a chair.
Yes.
I would go back to whoever's the owner of the salon and say, look, I can't pay rent on the chair. When I get none of us are covered. Try and negotiate with whoever is the salon owner to get some relief on that. And again, just put it in the terms of, look, we're all in this together,
Yeah, yeah. And as well, because the salon owner's probably got the £10,000 grant, which is there. So, and at the end of this as well, no one's going to want to have like a salon full of empty chairs where like everyone's left because
exactly, because
they've gone
someone
out of
got greedy
business.
and wouldn't. Yeah,
So,
no. I have one client. They're on a 15-year lease. They're 8 years through a 15-year lease. They've never missed a payment, and they're in a similar boat that basically with the lockdown. And so they went back to the landlord and just said, look, here's the situation. For 8 years, we've never missed a payment. We're a good business, but all of our employees have been told to go home. Our rent bill is quite big. Can we have a holiday? And the landlord came back and said, have 3 months off.
yeah.
Not everyone's going to do that, but go and ask.
I think from today though as well, I think credit cards seem to have I had a thing through from a credit card I've got saying like, oh, we'll give you a payment holiday kind of thing. So I think it's all coming around now, isn't it? Where
it's all coming around slowly. On things like credit cards and stuff where they're offering a payment holiday, just be careful about the small print because there might be interest and penalties if you don't make at least your minimum payment.
Yeah.
So double check the small print. But yeah, same thing like car leases. I'm aware of people who've got car leases and they've gone back to the leasing company and they've been able to either reduce their payments for a period of time or get a payment holiday. So a lot of people are being very sensible about this.
Because I know at the end of it, like there's talk that we're going to go into a recession.
Yeah.
But there are going to be people who are actually better off now because they're not going out, they're not spending. So hopefully that might even it out a little bit as well.
Absolutely. And I've had this conversation with a number of my clients when we were presenting to the staff what was happening. And people were saying, well, how am I going to survive on that? And I said, well, you're not going out to the cinema. You're not commuting, paying money on the tube or the train or the bus or whatever. You're not going clubbing every weekend. And this one client's got a whole team of staff in their early 20s. They probably spend a couple of $100 a weekend just going out clubbing. Well, they're not going to be spending that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the thing, because there's been a lot of salon owners a bit worried about, a client's going to have any money when they come back. And I'm like, yes, I'm sure, and interest rates are going to be so low. And, so yeah, hopefully fingers crossed everything. Someone's just asking, wait on, yeah, we've covered that on being a director and furloughing yourself and unfurloughing yourself.
Again, go and read the blog post on my website, and you'll put the links in the thing at the end. But there's a specific blog post about what it means for directors.
So I think we've got through all of the questions that I've got. Oh, hang on, Connor's just sent some through. More questions. Hi. Okay. Are you okay with this, David?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Right. Someone's asking, what can a furlough director actually do? And we've covered that.
We've covered that, and go and read the blog post because that sets it up.
Got that. We've got those covered, I think. Sorry, I'll just quickly go through these. Someone's saying, I don't have a business bank account as I'm very small with no staff. Is there something I can still look at doing?
So if they don't have a business bank account, then they're probably self-employed. In which case it's the scheme that kicks in June. Yeah. And the site, being small doesn't mean that you're not going to get something. But because that scheme isn't hitting until June, they're going to have to figure out how do they survive between now and June.
Now we're jumping back to practically where we started. I forgot to tell the council that I'd actually opened the new business. I can prove when I opened, which was last year, 15th of April. They still had it down as an empty shop and the owner business. I've sent the info now to them. Will I still get the £10,000 grant?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that one in that specific case. I guess if it was down as an empty shop, were they still assessed on rates? And if they were, then they should. But I would say that they've done the right thing to reach out to the council.
Do we have to pay the business grant back?
Grants are not repayable. No, grants, you must declare grants as income on your tax return, but you don't have to pay grants back. Whereas loans, you do have to pay back.
We've been
and so the premises grant, that's not repayable, and the job retention scheme is also effectively a grant that's not repayable, but the loans are repayable.
Right. I, like so many others, work from a log cabin in our gardens. Therefore, we don't pay rates, but I have to pay over £200 a month council tax. Is it worth trying to get this lowered with the council, as we don't have any funds coming in now? We can't get universal credit as I have an ISA, which was for a rainy day, but it looks like I will have to cash that in. Oh, an ISA, sorry. Can my partner apply for universal credit as he doesn't have any funds, or it's based on total funds of the household?
That's getting into an area that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah, I think that's something you need
a financial advisor on that. I focus on business.
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of can we get, so on the log cabin in the back garden, that's not business rates, therefore the grant will not apply. Whether they can apply for a reduction or not, apply by all means, but you'll be at the mercy of the council.
Yeah, I think as well. I think just dealing with the council, isn't it? It's explaining the situation and seeing what they come up with, because like you never know, they might have been told to be lenient moving forwards a little bit. You just don't know, do you? Really?
I mean, bear in mind, as we were saying early on, you know, the level of support that's come out is unprecedented. It's been very much targeted at how can we protect 80 or 90% of the population, because we can't cover all 100.
Yeah.
Let's get out and do something that helps. And I mean, I've been very active in lobbying. I wrote an open letter to the Chancellor 2 weeks ago about these issues around directors. You know, again, that's why I'm saying if you've got people who've successfully got the loans, I would love to hear their stories. If people have been rejected for the loans, I would love to hear their stories so that we can collate that and communicate that more widely so that people understand what are they facing.
Well, there'll be an awful lot of people watching this. I mean, I know there's an awful lot of people on live, but as well, like replay wise, there'll be an awful lot of people as well. So,
yep.
You know, really, I think everyone needs to go and do the scorecard just to find out how they are.
Yeah.
Your blogs, how you're putting those up all the time now, aren't you?
All the time now. I've done 7 blogs in the last 2 weeks.
Amazing. So again, that's something where it's just going to keep us totally updated. But David, this has been absolutely invaluable.
There's 2 more schemes that we have. Well, 2 more things we haven't covered.
Really?
So we've covered all the main schemes, and those are the new ones. Just very quickly, HMRC has something that's been running for a while. It's called Time to Pay, where if a business gets into trouble, you can phone up HMRC and ask for an extended period to make payments. They used to be quite challenging on that. My understanding is they've been told to be much more lenient. So let's say you've got a PAYE bill and all of a sudden you can't pay it. You can ring them up and say, can I pay it over the next 3 months? Now, if you're in a salon business and literally you have no income coming in, that's a different challenge. And I would imagine they would point you to get a CBILS loan. But if you've got a business where there's a little bit of revenue still coming in and you can pay something off, then the Time to Pay scheme could apply. So just Google HMRC time to pay, and it'll take you to a page and it'll give you a list of phone numbers.
Has this just come out now then, David?
No, time to pay scheme's been running for several years.
Oh, right.
They
Right.
don't promote it, but it's been running for several years. And the last one that I want to talk about, and this is specific to directors of limited companies. There was an announcement by the Chancellor on Friday of last week that was about or maybe it was Wednesday, anyway, last week. There is a temporary relaxation of the insolvent trading rules. Now, a lot of people don't necessarily understand this, but when you're running a limited company, under normal circumstances, you run it for the benefit of the shareholders. When you get into a position where you're not able to meet your liabilities as they fall due, that's what's called insolvent trading. And that's actually a criminal offense. Because when you get to that point, you have to run your business not for the benefit of the shareholders, but for the benefit of the creditors, because you don't want to be taking on more creditors in the knowledge that you cannot pay them. And the specific rules under the law are, if you are trading insolvent, or if you ought to have known that you were trading insolvent, those are criminal offenses. And if a business subsequently goes bust, the courts can come back and say to the directors of the company that you were trading insolvent, or you ought to have known you were trading insolvent, and we are coming after your personal assets to make good the things that you did when you were trading insolvent as the company. And in the most serious cases, and I don't imagine this would apply to a salon owner, but in the most serious cases, the directors can be imprisoned as well. So it's a very serious crime. There is a temporary relaxation of these rules. And again, I've written a blog post about it. If you go onto my page, it's the blog where the image is a black and white image of waves crashing against rocks.
Brilliant. Yeah, because I mean, I must admit, I speak to an awful lot of salon owners, and I have spoken to some who are at the point where they just want to throw the towel in. It's this out of that comfort zone too much, and whether or not with, all the help that's around, because I think it's still very early days to make a decision on your business. So I think you've got, it gives you time to think through what you want to do. I think it's probably never again will we have the time to think on our businesses of what.
No, it's interesting, people's reactions are very different. And, I mean, I touch wood, nobody in my family has been affected by it, but I have a client whose brother-in-law died. My wife's a retired teacher, and one of her colleagues, her brother died. So, this thing just hits randomly, wantonly. And, we've all got to take that seriously. But if you can get beyond the fear to act from a position that says, look, we are all in this together. We can either all kind of cower and hide and be fearful, or we can say, well, what can we do as an opportunity? How can we get through this? What can we do to stay positive? What can we do to help our communities? And the wonderful things that are happening, like what is it now, over 1 million people who volunteered to support the NHS, and they're going out and clapping for the NHS. And just those are wonderful things. And we, as business owners, what I'm encouraging people to do is stay in touch with your clients, stay in touch with your suppliers, because this too will pass. And when it passes and things come back, if you've been in touch with your clients and if you've been in touch with your suppliers, as things come back to normal, whatever normal is going to look like, you're going to be in a better position than if you've just gone and sort of hidden underneath the cupboards and thought, well, hopefully this will all go away, but I'm not going to go out into the world. Be proactive and try and help your fellow human beings.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some groups, and that's what everyone's doing. We're all really proactive, thinking of how to stay in touch and all these different things, and it's really nice. I think as well as an industry, it's brought us all together, but communities are coming together, and it's I don't think the world's ever going to be the same after this, but no. I think it's going to be you know, on one side, for, you know, there's a lot of sadness, but like there's going to be a lot of goodness comes out of it, I think, as
There's
well.
going to be a lot of goodness. And for those business owners who've been careful and who've preserved their cash flow, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, because there are going to be a lot of other businesses that, but for this, were perfectly good businesses, but they aren't going to succeed. And all of a sudden there will be opportunities to go up and, you know, pick up wonderful businesses at very attractive prices.
Yeah, that's what I've been talking, because obviously I did a lot of work with Jeremy years and years ago on mergers and acquisitions, and you know, there is, you know, I've been saying, you know, there's like there is going to be some great businesses that just aren't going to survive, where, you know, you can just.
I'm a huge fan and follower of Warren Buffett.
Oh yeah.
And there are two Warren Buffett quotes that are incredibly relevant right now, and in the immediate aftermath. And the first one is, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. So this is a great time for that. And the other one is, I would far rather buy a wonderful company at a fair price than a fair company at a wonderful price. So when you come out the other side and you see businesses that are struggling, look for the ones that were basically good businesses but are struggling. And if you can acquire them, you're onto something, as opposed to, oh, well, here's a rubbish business, but it's really cheap.
Yeah. No. Brilliant. David, this has just been amazing. And I know there's still even more questions coming in, but like what I'd like to say is, I think we've covered practically everything. I'm just looking. We'll do this last one if that's all right. I have employees who pays varies. We're told to pay same monthly earnings for the previous year. Average monthly earnings for 2020 tax year. So every month should be looked at individually, whatever's higher. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Now, what you've got to look at is where you've got people who have a fixed salary and then a variable element, and yeah, then you can. I'm pretty sure that what it says is you can either average them over the 12 months, or look at what it was 12 months ago, and that's what you do this month. But if you do that, and so let's say in April of 2019 they had a really good month, so you'll cover them for that. But then in May of 2019, if they had a bad month, you can only cover them for the 80% of whatever the bad was. And if you and for instance, let's say in a bad month they made 1,500 quid, and in a good month they made £4,000. Well, once they're over £3,125, it doesn't make any difference, because there's that cap.
Yeah. Right, we're going to leave the questions now. David, I have taken up so much of your time, but it's been absolutely amazing. This is like the information is just, it's been gold dust. It's amazing. Everyone's like coming on now saying thank you. This has been fantastic. So
if I can shamelessly plug my book.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon. It's paperback and Kindle version available. But
yeah, and as well, I'll keep everyone updated on the new work you're doing, the new book, everything like that. Everyone needs to read your blogs. The scorecard, we'll have everything in the feed. But yeah, as I say, I just cannot thank you enough. This has been absolutely fantastic.
My pleasure.
So and I'm sure there'll still be people asking questions, but if there's anything that we can't field ourselves, what we'll do is, if that's all right, send
you and I can communicate through that. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
No, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.